How's it going, my fellow Imperial officers, or should I say rebel scum? My name is Boba and you are watching BobaTalks. So this is my Star Wars Rogue One review. It will be quite heavily spoilery, so if you haven't seen the film, be sure to go watch it and then come back to this video. This film was absolutely insanely good, so I've got so much to talk about, so I'm going to get straight into this video and not waste any more time. So Rogue One absolutely blew my mind. It exceeded any expectations I had. I thought going into the film, it being a story that we already knew, it would only do so well, but honestly, if anything, it's become one of my new favourite Star Wars movies. And I say this because the film tried to do something different, and they did achieve that, as well as maintain that Star Wars feel. And in the way it was different, it was dark. Similar to that of The Empire Strikes Back, but this sort of takes that but goes a few levels above that. Now, obviously, Rogue One is full of everything we know and love about Star Wars, especially in comparison to the old films, as this is set just before A New Hope. It's got the amazing sets, and it's got the aliens, but, the weirdest, wackiest aliens made from actual costumes, not, so much CGI. So, of course, it had that really retro, futuristic, at the same time, Star Wars feel to it. Now, when it comes to actors in this film, I was really pleasantly surprised. Obviously, this consists of a cast which most of us don't know about since they weren't in the other Star Wars movies for a very obvious reason, which I'll get to. But K2SO was a really, really good addition to the droids of Star Wars. Now, K2SO is a converted, sort of reprogrammed Imperial droid, and he's more of if anything, if you would ever call a droid sentient in Star Wars, he is that. He thinks for himself. Even though this is a much darker Star Wars film, he is the one who added in those really funny moments where when I was in the theatre, everyone definitely did have a giggle to. The one thing I'm sad about with K2SO is with the departure of this film and his character, because obviously of what happens at the end of the film. It's really sad that we probably obviously won't see him again in another Star Wars film. Even if we had a similar droid of his type, it just wouldn't be the same. So this makes that film much more special with all the characters in general, because all these characters, it's one story that doesn't require, multiple films to tell. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, now 7, 8, and 9. This is one story that gets wrapped up in one film, and it's one of those bittersweet films where you fall in love with all these characters. It's absolutely amazing, only for it to be taken away from you. It's like saying, meeting a new friend and saying hello and waving goodbye. Now, I have been a fan of Felicity Jones before. I admit I haven't seen her in loads of things. I've seen her in The Theory of Everything. I've seen her in the latest Da Vinci Code film, Inferno. So when coming to see Rogue One, I wasn't, neither really, really excited or, distasted by her being Jyn Erso, like some people were. But I thought she played a very, very good role in this film. And to be honest, her and Mads Mikkelsen, who I really do adore, their father and daughter relationship honestly had me edging to tears at points. Just the connection, because this, Jyn Erso's character is on a quest to find her father, and there's a couple of points in the film that really, achieve the goal they set out to do by making me feel that emotion of, Jyn longing for her father and Galen also longing for his daughter, since the story is that Galen Erso went to build the Death Star because he didn't want anyone else to do it so he could put the trap in it. Now, talking about the characters, it brings me on to Captain Cassian Andor, and obviously we've got other characters in there that we have sort of seen in the previous films like Mon Mothma, etc., and we see the Rebel Alliance and Yavin 4 in this film, and this is what really kind of made it really interesting for me, is that for once, we see the Rebel Alliance that isn't painted in such a nice goody-goody two-shoes way. Rogue One shows a much more harsh side to the rebellion, for example, where one of the commanders of the Rebel Alliance tells Captain Cassian Andor that he is to kill Jyn Erso's father, when Jyn Erso is under the impression that they're there to rescue him. It's just showing that ruthlessness of it. I mean, I know that, the Rebel Alliance are doing that in the sense of, he's too dangerous to be kept alive kind of thing. In the previous films, we see Luke go to the Rebel Alliance with Han and Leia, and it's all ceremonies and, for the Alliance and stuff like that. And it still is very much that in this film, don't get me wrong, but we see how they can be cold as well, similar to that of the Empire. Now, one thing I have to admit I wasn't so sure about before I went in about seeing the film from the trailers is Donnie Yen's character. I just felt like his lines were a bit cringy from the trailers and stuff like that. And then we've got Jiang Wen, who was, like the older friend gunslinger who kind of looks after him. But I completely take back all those reservations I had about those two characters because they were really, really good in the film. And if you want to get anything close to the Jedi and the Force, it is these two characters. And the thing that kind of won me over was that Donnie Yen was an absolute badass. And, as I said, this film, as cool as it was, left us with such a sad departure of each one of these main characters. And that's in addition, I have to add to this review as well. Each character was, I feel like, explored just as much as the other character. And that is kind of rare to see in a film of this side. For example, that was one of the problems with Suicide Squad. But I feel like with these characters, there was so much tribute paid to them, especially in their last moments. Now, we got a couple of CGI resurrections in this film, which I actually really did like. I wasn't so sure when I first got a glance of it, but I feel like Peter Cushing's Tarkin was actually a really good job. It's really touchy in these films when they do CGI. It either completely ruins it, or it completely, pulls it off. And in Rogue One, they didn't completely ruin it at all, but it was obviously you could tell that it was CGI, so it wasn't completely 100% amazing. But I'm definitely glad they did it and they didn't get another actor in, or they didn't abandon this idea at all, because seeing Tarkin in this film was incredible. It added a lot more of a feud between him and director Krennic, since Tarkin in this film wanted to take over the whole Death Star command, and that was really interesting seeing Krennic, not having any of that, and then proceeding to meet Darth Vader back on Mustafar, and that is something I wanted to talk about as well. I was so happy with what we got to see with Darth Vader in this film. I thought the scene where Krennic was flying down to Mustafar was insane. We saw this fortress Darth Vader was in, and it finally explained that scene in the trailers where that robed figure goes and kneels down before the Bacta tank. Now, if you know a little bit about Darth Vader, you know that more or less after his injuries, he is kind of in a lot of pain a lot of the time. So that is most likely, obviously, why he was in the Bacta tank. He was sort of just chilling in between, I don't know, whatever he does these days for the Emperor. So when Krennic came along and wanted to talk to Darth Vader and, let him know that, the weapon works, and he kind of wants Vader to go to the Emperor and say that it was, Krennic who did this, not Tarkin. And just when Darth Vader chokes him, he's like, be sure you know your place and don't choke on your aspirations. That was freaking epic. It was just freaking epic seeing Darth Vader in general. And that scene at the end, holy shit. I can't even begin to describe how amazing that was, really. I'm just so thankful that it wasn't just left on him igniting his saber. I remember thinking as I was sat there watching it, when he ignited his saber, when this was obviously setting up A New Hope, I was like, please just don't end it there. Please let him swing his lightsaber at a couple of rebels. And we got that and more. Honestly, even though it was just one scene, it was just something that made me so happy, mainly because even though obviously Darth Vader is a worshipped character amongst many fans out there, we've only properly ever seen him in the films as a stiff robot with the combat of the old films. Granted, we have seen him in Star Wars Rebels, but I'm talking about live action, and now we finally got the justification of Darth Vader's power. And what made that scene so impactful as well is that the Death Star plans, obviously that proceeded to go on in episode 4 and provide the Rebel Alliance with a way to destroy Death Star, they literally just got away by an inch. This one rebel was, running away from Darth Vader whilst he was cutting the others down and barely slid it through the door to the other pilot, and then that pilot died, and oh my god, I'm just going to stop now before I keep going on and on. That was definitely one of the coolest scenes in the film. Now, there was a couple of Easter eggs in the film. I'm sure I missed a couple as well, but I really actually like the one where they included the aliens that go into the bar on Mos Eisley Cantina in A New Hope that, sort of ruffle up Luke a bit, and then Obi-Wan proceeds to chop off their hand. They were actually in Jeddah City. So a couple of days before the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, both these aliens were just chilling on Jeddah and somehow got away with the Death Star blast. I mean, they don't really explain that. I mean, I guess you could argue that they were actually on their way to the spaceport and then just proceeded to go to Tatooine. We obviously got R2-D2 and C-3PO for one line. That was cool. I really liked seeing Bail Organa in this film from the prequels. That was really, really cool. I really liked the Star Wars music that came on, and especially his mention of Obi-Wan with Mon Mothma, because she mentioned the Jedi, and then he went on to say that he's going to give the plans to Leia, basically someone he trusts with his life. But yeah, overall, this film film just really does, I feel like, give a lot more context to A New Hope, episode 4. And I know that sounds obvious because this is Rogue One about, stealing the Death Star plans, but it literally does lead up until the very few last seconds, right into that intro scene of episode 4 where Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers blast through the Rebel ship. And, Darth Vader's super pissed off saying, I want those plans and I want the princess captured alive. All that was literally moments after the way Rogue One ended. And I'm not saying that singular moment with Darth Vader defines the film at all. I'm saying that the whole film, with all that struggle, all the emotion of those characters to get these plans, and how, just at any moment it could have gone the complete opposite way. It just gives so much more context to A New Hope in that way. So, you could practically, it's probably, I advise that you should watch this film as, episode 3.85 and then episode 4, 5 and 6. There were also a couple of scenes that weren't included in the film from the trailers. For example, where Jyn Erso said something along the lines of, we're rebels, I rebel. And I'm kind of glad they didn't do that, because there were, obviously a couple of cheesy things in the trailers that they've cut out, and I feel like they did that for the greater good. And also where Jyn Erso, was realigning the satellite for the transmission of the Death Star plans to get up to the Rebel Alliance. There was a TIE fighter in the trailer that appeared and confronted her, and I guess somehow she got out of that, but they completely cut that. She just walks over to it and Commander Krennic appears. I don't know why they did that. I'm sure they did it for a good reason. I mean, I was kind of excited because that looked like a pretty epic scene when that TIE fighter raises up. That was completely cut from the film. I'm sure that's a good reason, but yeah, Rogue One was an absolutely insane film. It just shows that Disney are doing great things with Star Wars, and it shows that they can pull off fantastic stories in just one film that doesn't require 2 or 3 more to expand upon it. And that doesn't mean I'm shitting on The Force Awakens at all. I love that film. I can't wait for episode 8 and 9. But as a lot of people are saying, it means that Star Wars doesn't have to rely on the Skywalkers to be an amazing thing. And I also hope they keep it as dark and gritty. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't mega gothically dark, but it was just, I just felt like it was much more of what Star Wars needed, and it was just a much more mature Star Wars film. But overall, guys, let me know what you thought of Rogue One in the comments below. But all I can say is I think that this film speaks volumes to what Disney are doing with Star Wars, and I am just so hyped to see what happens next with Disney and Star Wars. If you did enjoy this review, guys, please leave a like on this video and let me know. It really does help me out, and I'd really appreciate it. And if you aren't already subscribed to this channel, maybe even consider subscribing for more Star Wars content, more DC content, you name it. And if you are already subscribed to me, make sure you click that bell button by the subscriber button to make sure you get notifications for all future uploads so you don't miss any. But apart from that, everybody, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you. Goodbye.